So we need to talk about the ending of 28 Years Later. And last night I put up a review of the movie 28 Years Later, and I called it a cinematic achievement. I called it phenomenal. I said a lot of positive things about it. And I understand that the ending is something that bumps quite a lot with people. So I wanted to kind of address that separately, and I'm obviously going to do so with spoilers. And I'm speaking long enough right now to give you enough time that if you haven't seen the movie, scroll away from this. You've had 30 seconds now, so don't at me. You've had plenty of time. I am going to speak about it freely with spoilers. The ending of the movie sees the return of Jimmy, who is the kid from the start of the movie that we see originally watching Teletubbies, who then sees his parents murdered by the infected, and he's now revamped himself and seems to be dressed with a crew that he leads unmistakably like noted former British TV presenter turned mass paedophile evil man Jimmy Savile. That's a fucking choice. And a lot of people are, understandably, and I'm catching up to the discourse of the movie since I've seen it, they are bumping up against this because they feel like it's a complete tone shift from the rest of the movie, which was fairly grounded, even if it was a bit fantastical at times. And I get it, I do. It does feel like a completely different movie. For me, it felt like such a tone shift that it was definitely setting up the sequel. So it felt to me like a pre-credits, post-credit scene. You know, it felt like they're doing the part where they're doing the stinger, which sets up the next movie, and I don't really judge it as part of this movie. So I didn't feel that it ruined the movie, but I also hear people that say it's a massive tone shift. It's a shark jumping moment that took me completely out of everything emotionally the movie had brought me into. And of course, it's obviously confusing with just throwing a tribute to Jimmy Savile in there. Like, what the fuck are you thinking? The thing I think it's important to remember is that the screenplay here is written by Alex Garland. And Alex Garland in recent years has kind of leaned into kind of heavy, subtle as a brick social commentary in his movies. The use of Jimmy Savile here is definitely that subtle as a brick social commentary. And it's important to remember a few things as we kind of go, well, did they ruin the series, and what the fuck is the sequel going to be? And keep in mind that the sequel is coming out in January. It's going to be called 28 Years Later, The Bone Temple. And before I saw this, I heard the name of that sequel and I go, that sounds awful. That sounds like they're going to ruin the series with that movie. I didn't let it ruin 28 Years Later because I'm like, that's a separate movie, but you know, it sounds like a Night at the Museum sequel. It sounds like something really cheesy and B grade. But also keep in mind that 28 Years Later is a massive jump from 28 weeks later, and I really liked it. And I like Danny Boyle, and I like a lot of what Alex Garland has done as well. So I'm willing to give them a chance because they made this movie work, and that movie was shot back to back with this movie. So I'll give them a shot. So in the spirit of that, let's take it at face value and see what we can learn from it, okay? So what do we know about Jimmy, the character that we're presented with? First off, we know obviously that he was traumatized as a child. He had to watch both his parents being viciously murdered and all of his friends be murdered by zombies as they were trying to watch Teletubbies. That is his first probable core memory of his life, and that's the person that you're dealing with. Secondly, we can infer from the fact that we saw him watching Teletubbies that he's pop culture aware and he's influenced by pop culture. So the fact that he knows Jimmy Savile exists and he may have been a positive influence on him, which again is a massive choice. But again, I suppose a kid may have looked up to Jimmy Savile at that point. It's worth considering that in 28 Days Later, so in this lore, the apocalypse happened in 2002, which, you know, there were whispers about Jimmy Savile and his kind of activity and the evil side of him in society for decades before it was actually revealed. But he was still celebrated as a national treasure then, publicly, and, you know, the likes of Jimmy, who would have been very young, wouldn't have seen him in that light. He wouldn't have been seen as evil by children who were aware of him. At the same time, though, you can't just let that decision go unnoticed. Like Alex Garland and Danny Boyle, the filmmakers who are making this choice, they know who Jimmy Savile is. So what can we infer from this in terms of setting our own expectations for the Bone Temple? First off, I think the main thing that we can take away from this is that Jimmy, while he's presented as kind of a savior figure to Spike, the main character, who we've obviously grown attached to in this movie, so you probably lean on the side of he's good, ? But his choice of idolizing Jimmy Savile and basing his and his entourage's entire look and persona around him would probably lead us to suggest that his instinct and judgment is not always right. That's to say the least. Does it infer anything about pedophilia, or does it infer that, you know, the fact that Spike is a child and he's saving him and trying to, you know, maybe groom him to bring him over to the side? I don't know. Again, we can't tell. We haven't seen the movie. We don't know where this is going. I would say that if they go down that route, that is fucked up and probably going to be a mistake. I'll watch the movie and I'll judge it on its merits, but I really hope they don't lean into their worst impulses on that side of things. But it would tell us that what Jimmy thinks is good may not be good. What Jimmy thinks is right may actually be evil. So that's what we can infer in kind of going into the Bone Temple. And I think if you want to like have an issue with this, and if you want to say I'm nervous about this, then I think that's a totally fair thing, because they made you nervous. They tried to provoke you, and they knew they were going to get this reaction as well. That's worth considering. I don't think Danny Boyle particularly is blind to the fact that invoking Jimmy Savile is going to upset people. So they know what they're doing, and kind of I'll give them a pass and hear what they have to say. It's just, I'm like, how do you land this ship? I'm nervous, but I'm also kind of excited too, because I'm like, okay, you've really jumped in with 2 feet here, and now you're in this mess where like one of the lead characters in the sequel movie you're setting up is based on Jimmy Savile, and you have to deal with that in some way. And if you don't deal with it, it's going to be like, what the fuck would you invoke Jimmy Savile for? But there's also an opportunity for this could work. This could be searing social commentary that they're going to do. Again, keep in mind, in 28 years later, there's a lot of political commentary that goes on. We see in the village where Spike grows up, you see the Queen's picture invoked. You see the Teletubbies there. We're seeing Jimmy Savile. It's also worth noting as well that the UK, and they're at pains. They even retcon at the end of 28 weeks later, where the infection spreads to France. They retcon that and say that no, this is only happening in the UK and Ireland, by the way. I think we should talk about that more. They say that like Ireland is also wrote off on one of the maps that they see, which again, you're saying the UK is only affected and you're just including Ireland in that as a BT. Go fuck yourself, lads. We didn't agree to this, okay? I'm not like, Ireland would be fine in this. It's the UK that's fucked. But I think there is a commentary in that the UK is isolated in itself. Are the chickens coming home to roost for the pop culture things that they say? Is this a commentary on how the UK has idolized people like the likes of Jimmy Savile on a pedestal, and this is karma coming for you? Maybe that's where this is going. I don't know, I'm just speculating, but there are ways that I could see this working, and I'm willing to give it a chance based on the strength of this movie. But I also do get people's nerves. I get it. It was a massive tone shift. It felt like they jumped into a different movie, but that's okay, because technically they did. And if this happened halfway through the credits, we may feel differently. But because it happened before the credits and it technically was a part of the same movie, and it was kind of an extension of the emotionally cathartic part of the story that we're meant to take from it, I totally get why people would be like, huh? And taken out of the moment and feel very nervous about this. I feel nervous, but I like weird filmmaking, whether it's good or not. I like filmmaking that takes a leap and takes a swing. I find it interesting, even if it doesn't work. So I'm willing to give it a shot.